A couple months ago I made a video about a short horror game called Sparky Marky. It was originally a demo for their upcoming game, which is now called Sparky Marky Online. And when I first played this demo, I wasn't very impressed and honestly thought it wasn't going to go anywhere. But I've recently looked back at what Clapperheads have been up to the past couple months, and you know what? I am thoroughly surprised by the progress they've made. In the past months, they've released another short game with a third one coming soon. And when playing these games, I've noticed a huge improvement in atmosphere, game design, lighting, and storytelling. And that's why today we're going back and taking another look at Sparky Marky and why I was wrong about it being just another bad Mascot horror game. It has far more going for it and has ideas that are genuinely interesting and unique. So with that said, if you plan on playing this game, I highly advise playing it before watching this video, because I go into many spoilers. And now that we got that out of the way, let's get right into the camp of Sparky Marky. So before we get into episode 1 of Sparky Marky, for the sake of saving time, I'm not going to talk about everything in the first episode, but if you're interested in a more in-depth video, you can watch it right here. That said, in this game, you're playing as a kid in an abandoned camp called Amber Spark, where you're trying to escape from Sparky, who has a horrifying monster from within. And to complete the game, you have to solve small puzzles and escape the monster that's inside Sparky before it kills you. Now that you have a general idea on what it's about, let's go through the game and see what's been improved upon since my last playthrough. One of the very first improvements I noticed when replaying this first episode was just how nice everything looks. The lighting, the textures, the models, all of it looks so much better and gives this game a sense of identity. And along with this, the sound design feels more complex, with creepy sounds and murmurs echoing the map. I mean, just everything felt better and smoother. Clapperheads even changed the color of Sparky from a blue to a bright green, and also switched out his whistling noise for a less repetitive sound. It's as if it's a whole new experience because of how different it felt. But not only was the design improved, but the gameplay was also improved in some ways. One of the best things added into this game was the ability to sprint. When I last played this game, it involved a lot of back and forth, and became boring very quickly. But now that you're able to sprint around, it feels less like a chore and improves the game's pacing. Another thing I really liked was the slight change in the room with the watch detector. The first time I played, there wasn't even a vending machine blocking the way, which gave confusion as to what you needed to do in this area. But now that it's blocked, it's far easier to understand that you need to shoot the panel on the wall with a flare gun. As you can see, there are tons of positive improvements. But unfortunately, some of the problems I had during my first playthrough are still in the game. And one of my main complaints was the use of their Discord server. Throughout the game, you'd find commands that you put into their Discord to unveil secrets, to learn more about the game and its lore. But that's not really what you get from them. Instead, you either get more information about their upcoming co-op horror game, or get information so vague it has no meaning or value to you as a player. For example, when you type in scooter into their Discord, you get an image of scooters and a description that says, fast, safe, and energy efficient transportation device for Amber Spark staff. It just feels redundant and has no real use inside or outside the game. Another thing I had a problem with is the designs for the QR monster in Sparky. But looking at it now, Sparky is really the only one I have a problem with, because he just doesn't look as intimidating compared to the QR monster. Sparky still feels like he needs that extra something to make him feel like more of a threat. And maybe one way Clapperheads could improve upon this is by making him more roughed up, with holes exposing parts of some kind of monster inside him. Or maybe have the monster's eyes behind Sparky's, which would farther drive that uncanny feeling you get when you're uncertain of someone's intentions. He'd come across as safe and friendly, but being able to see the parts of the monster within him would contradict that and farther drive home your fight or flight response. Overall, Clapperheads have done a great job at improving episode 1, from the models, textures, story, and sound design. And really the only main problem I have with it is the utilization of their Discord commands, because it isn't used to its full potential. These commands should give us more information about what Amber Spark is and how Sparky came to be. It it would make us care far more about the story and in turn make us care about their co-op horror game, not the other way around. And that's why when I played episode 2 of Sparky Marky, I was very pleased to see that they improved upon this.
Welcome to the monthly assessment, Dr. Barlow.
Very nice. And that's why you distracted me from my work.
In episode 2, you play as Dr. Barlow, a staff member of Amber Spark Corporation, going through her monthly assessment. While going through the facility, you are given tasks by an AI entity called Susie. While doing these tasks, you learn more about the game's mechanics and are faced against Sparky with a monster called Clapperhead within him. Towards the end, you barely manage to escape Sparky's grasp, which leaves you off on a cliffhanger for episode 3. So now that you know the gist of what episode 2 has in store, let's take a look at why this is such a huge improvement from episode 1. So, when you first start the game, the very first thing you'll notice is that there is voice acting and dialogue within this episode. And not only is this voice acting good, but it also does a good job at directing you on where to go while explaining questions you might have as a player. It's done so well that the conversation between Dr. Barlow and Susie feels natural. And better yet, there are also audio tapes you'll end up finding during the playthrough. Each of these audio tapes will shine light on Dr. Price and Dr. Bennett, who are both researching the mysterious workings behind the monsters of Sparky. Through the tapes, you'll find out Dr. Price believes that the ancient ruins left by these monsters are the key to understanding them and controlling them, while Dr. Bennett believes that the sonic anomalies left by these monsters are the true key to understanding them. And while you're listening to each of them, you'll find that they have hatred for one another, because they feel their research is far superior. It's an interesting dynamic that grabbed my attention, especially when you find out the only reason they work together is because of a man named Mr. Spark, who is the one in charge of the whole operation. And it makes you wonder what Mr. Spark's motives are. And this is why the story is already more interesting than episode 1. There is more substance shown to us, and we are given just enough information to both capture our attention while also leaving out just enough to make us want to know more. And that's where the commands come in. The commands are far more interesting in episode 2, because they actually tell you more about the game and the unanswered questions you might have. You learn more about Dr. Price and Bennett and what their roles are in the Amber Spark Corporation. And you learn more about sonic anomalies and the RM lamp Dr. Price uses to detect ancient ruins. These commands are such an improvement and makes me more interested in their final game, Sparky Marky Online. And not only is the story and commands better, but the designs and the gameplay are far better than the previous game. The facility feels detailed and used, and has many objects that are nice and stylized to fit the game. It has the right amount of lighting to bring tension to the player, but also allowing you to see the facility in all its glory. The short cutscenes are also smooth and feel professionally made. And Clapperhead's design is truly something else, from the huge cape over his bony body and his clapperboard-like head that periodically chomps its teeth as it gets closer to you. It's truly one of my favorite monsters in the series so far. And that's why I don't have much to add to this monster, because it's something I haven't seen before and feels original. Unfortunately though, my criticisms still stand for Sparky's design, since it still hasn't changed. But overall, the game's style really shines in episode 2, and that's not the only thing that really shines here. The gameplay was very thought-provoking and helped me better understand what will be in store for their co-op horror game. When you first start playing this game, you get a watch which you'll find has apps on it, and one of the apps is a monster database program, which has a slew of monsters from them, from the QR monster, Clapperhead, Selfie monster, and so many more. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that you're given filters to filter out the possible monsters that could be inside Sparky. These filters consist of movement, food, ooze, sound, and rune types, which are meant to be used to slowly identify the monster within Sparky. And it gets even more interesting when you realize you are given different types of guns to gather the evidence needed to filter out all these monsters. You have the sonic gun, which is used to read the sound frequencies of sonic anomalies left by monsters. You have the chemical gun, which can be used to identify the color of the ooze on the floors and walls. And lastly, you have the RM lamp used to find runes left by these monsters. All these tools slowly help you to figure out the monster in Sparky, and supposedly allow you to escape the monster in the co-op horror game. And while you're doing this, you also have tools that can help you gain an upper hand, such as the health gun that can be used to heal yourself, and a taser gun that can be used to stun Sparky for a period of time. And then you have ways of getting around the abandoned camp, such as the app terminals around the facility that can be used to purchase a one-time door hack or elevator hack to your watch. You also have flare guns that can be used to break fragile panels on the walls. And just when you think it can't get more interesting, you have the marker gun, which is possibly the most interesting mechanic shown in the game. Basically, Sparky becomes invisible to the player that is marked. The marker gun is used to mark someone else to allow you to see Sparky and strategize effectively. It's a very interesting idea, and I'd be curious as to how this would work in their final game. Overall, episode 2 is basically a tutorial and a teaser for their upcoming co-op horror game, and it does a really good job at it. It shows you all the game mechanics and tools that you can utilize one by one so you can get a feel for them. And while the game does all this, you learn more about Amber Spark and what Sparky is. It's a really good tutorial because it doesn't feel like you're playing one. Instead, it just feels like a nice short horror game that teases what's to come in the future. And speaking of future, let's take a quick look at what their upcoming game will entail. On their Steam page, they talk about how your goal is to trap Sparky and catch the unique monster hidden inside him. You have to explore the huge abandoned children's camp and look for clues to identify the monster inside Sparky. And as soon as you find out which monster it is, you must properly configure the protective terminal to deactivate it. During all this, you'll also be timed, and each round will be different, with the developers describing Sparky as a scary Kinder Surprise with monsters inside. Overall, it sounds like a very unique game, especially since you have the ability to make monsters invisible to other players to sabotage them. This game feels like Phasmophobia, but taken to a whole other level. It's unique, and I'm very excited to see where this game goes, and you'll definitely catch me making a video of this game when it comes out. It's truly astonishing that if I hadn't taken the time to look back at it, I would have never given it a second chance. And that's something I've learned while making this video. I was wrong for being so quick to categorize it as another poor attempt at Mascot horror. I didn't take the time to really give it a chance to flesh out its ideas. And I hope, just like I have, you'll give this game a chance too, as it actively strives to be a unique addition to the Mascot horror genre. With that said, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. Also, feel free to comment on how you feel on my take of the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. With that said, see you next time.